Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, tonight is a very special night when it comes to discussion streams. We are going to be discussing how we, the fans, would do a Terminator film. Because some of us do believe that while the Terminator films are good, I myself love 1 and 2, and I'm pretty partial to Genesis and T3, but I feel that there is more or a better story to be told. And we are waiting for Chris Knight to come on in because he is running late. So I will wait a little bit and say hello to the chat. Seems we got Demago, Marty, how you doing? Vanja, good to see you. There would be less Guns N' Roses and more Metallica. And then he does the dab, but they call it the elbow cough. And yeah. So make sure you smash that like button, folks. Ross Cooper, hey, thanks for making it, buddy. I tried using your link to that to your T3 version. Unfortunately, it said that the link had been terminated. So I'm sorry I couldn't, because I was actually thinking about putting it in here to discuss a little bit of it as well. Unfortunately, the link did not work. Shaq Skywalker's Jedi Academy, how you guys doing? Thank you for stopping in. Folks, make sure that you terminate that like button. It really does help the channel more than you guys know. It helps other people get the or it helps other people notice the channel more. It helps the recommended part of YouTube send videos out to others. And make sure that you subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I do all sorts of different content. I recently did 2 videos today on, well, one on Demi Lovato because, well, yeah, she's nuts. And I did one on how Gina Carano will never come back to Star Wars, no matter how much people wish her to do that. But other than that, I am just waiting for the rest of the panel to arrive. Chris, and then we'll get started. Mega Jetty will be joining us after he gets home from work. And yeah, but basically I will start a little bit. I did a video a couple years back, shortly before or after Terminator Dark Fate came out, of how I would do a Terminator sequel. And I would actually do 2 sequels to Terminator 2. It would be a 4-movie arc. And the first movie would basically, it would be how Judgment Day was stopped, or rather postponed. I'm sticking with the T3, how they postponed Judgment Day. And it would then go into the earlier days of the, it would be a time jump. Judgment Day happens around the year 2000. I know, it's cliche. But there's things that happened because Skynet would have sent more than just the T-800 and the T-1000. There would also be other uses, or there would possibly be others sent back in order to ensure that Skynet, yes, T2. But yes, actually yes, Judgment Day was postponed from 1997 to 2000 instead of 2003, or 2004, where Judgment Day happens in T3. So my T3 would basically be Terminator 3. I have not really thought of a subtitle for it yet. Basically, the running subtitle that I would think of would probably be Nuclear Fire, because Judgment Day does happen. It does happen. It's unavoidable. As the or as the T850 said in T3, Judgment Day is inevitable. But there would be reasons why, because even though the prototype and the processor was destroyed in T2, that does not necessarily mean that backups were not created and that that was the only Cyberdyne building, you know? So there would be a story that does include the backups of Cyberdyne and how it is actually tied into Washington, D.C., where the main Cyberdyne systems would be, or Cyberdyne building would be, and where their backup servers and all that stuff, they would have their main building there, which would make it a lot harder to, well, destroy or to attack that building because it is near the center of government for the United States. However, Sarah Connor and John Connor are in Mexico. They're living their lives free because they thought that they had actually won. As soon as the original happened, there was already a new timeline. Yes, that is Chris does love to actually say that. And read SM Sterling books. No, I honestly cannot say, unless you're talking about the T-Salvation books. What I want is T-Salvation, but without the Jim Bros and high-tech resistance. Also, unknown actors for John and Kyle. Show older Kyle before he goes through time as well. That's actually part of my story. The ending of the second movie is basically the beginning of T1. It is where Kyle and Uncle Bob are being sent back. But basically, another T800 is sent back. How you doing, Price is Right? Good to see you. I hope your treatments are going well, dude. Seriously, I hope you're recovering. Folks, Price is Right, in case you haven't known, Price is Right is going through a tough time with some medical issues. So definitely, if you're aware of his channel, give his channel a like, give his channel a sub and whatnot. He could use all the support we can give. Seriously, give the books a chance. They're great. If you're talking about the Salvation books, I have read those. Nope. Okay, so I will look for them. If you're talking about the novelizations for the movies, I will be looking for those as well. All in due time because finances are kind of strained during the holiday season. So anyway, did Sarah Cron canon, or is Sarah Cron canon in this discussion? No. This discussion is purely from T1, T2, and the fans' continuation from there. There's not or clean slate after they destroyed or after they thought that they had won. I'm good so far. Good news. If my treatments are done right, I should be in remission by early or mid-December. That is great, dude. And here's Chris.
Sorry.
It's all right, dude.
I was doing a selection show for the Rumble Tournament of Champions, so I wanted to make sure get done. Let us see here. I know I should have somewhere. Maybe.
So basically, to catch you up, I've just gotten started on how my two movie continuation would go.
Mm-hmm.
And in this new timeline, because T2 does create a new timeline, so to speak, Judgment Day is 2000. Cliche, I know.
Okay. No, that's fine.
And this first movie does have a time jump from 2000 to 2000, let's say 18 to 2019, where they finally where they actually rescue Kyle Reese. The ending of the third movie is where they rescue Kyle Reese, but Sarah Connor does live to see this future war. But unfortunately, in that mission, she does die. So there is no cross-contamination of how Kyle Reese meeting Sarah before he goes back through time.
Okay.
So basically, the story is that Cyberdyne does have a backup in DC, and it's a lot harder to attack that facility, seeing how it's closer to our central or center of government for the country. John Connor and Sarah Connor are in Mexico. They're living their lives there because honestly, they can't go back to the U.S. She's wanted, and well, he's also implicated in the destruction of Cyberdyne. 2 T-800s have gone back. Model 101, another Arnold, but a different model as well, goes back to ensure their survival. One is to stockpile weapons. The other is to keep them safe. The other undesignated model, I'll probably call it like a 110 or something like that. It's still a T-800, but it would be like model 110, looking like somebody else, would basically be ensuring that they have weapons and munitions stockpiled in different areas. And a T-1000 does engage. A second T-1000 is sent back. It engages with them in Mexico, but because the future changed, John Connor would know the limitations of this T-1000. So he would send the T-800 that's protecting them. And Sarah Connor's not happy about this either. She thought that they had won. He thought that they had won, but it's very discouraging because he does tell them, you can't stop it. It's going to happen, no matter what we do. So after they have the small fight against a T-1000, this Arnold literally blasts the thing apart with like a grenade launcher or whatever. It basically blows it apart and they escape. But instead of giving pursuit, this T-1000 also has another directive: ensure Judgment Day happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually does go to the new Cyberdyne to infiltrate and to assist in its development and to also rush its development. And for the most part, it does work. Sarah wants to go back into the United States, but the second that she steps across the border, she is caught. But at this point, Judgment Day is right on track to happen. That's when the nukes start flying. They're not wiped out. They're actually far away from the first nukes, but they see that the missiles are already starting to fly even from the border because it's all over. Now, they would then do the time jump. This T8 or the 2 T-800s had ensured the stockpile because they had arrived early 1999, and they were unaware. Well, the T-800 was given an order by John Connor to make sure they survive because they can't stop it. It was inevitable. So we skip to the future war. You don't quite have the purple ray or the purple guns yet, but we do have Sarah Connor's working with the TechCom. John Connor is now established not as the leader of the resistance, but we are kind of going to Salvation, where he has prestige within the resistance. He has influence. And he's like, I know where they're going to have camps. And you will get some exposition on how how he knows what he knows, why the military is kind of standoffish of him, but also how they will listen to him in certain areas. Because Pescadero is known to the government because Sarah Connor is on a federal watch list, and they have all of the stuff that she has said in the past, so they will give her and John credence, or they will give them benefit of the doubt, so to speak. They'll believe them to a degree, but they will not let them dictate how the resistance is run. But in this movie, as they're rescuing, or it's not just Sarah Connor that gets killed during the ending of this movie, but also the resistance, or the main resistance command, is also infiltrated and killed by Terminators, because the T-800s were starting to work, or were starting to get into development. And the very first prototype of the T1, or the T-800, is sent and actually does make it to Resistance Command and wipes them out as they are launching the rescue mission that happens to come across Kyle Reese. Unfortunately, Sarah Connor is a casualty, and they cannot, and John actually orders in the next movie, you understand that he ordered Sarah's body to be cremated, and to make sure that Kyle Reese does not step anywhere near her body, so he doesn't have any future influence of what Sarah Connor is in the past. So I'm trying to actually keep the story relevant to the first movie so that Kyle can go back and fall in love with Sarah, because he does receive, in the second movie, he'll receive that picture. They will have a slight narration in the second movie where you see John hand him the picture and how he does discuss stuff with him. And it's in the waning days of the war in 2029, where they are planning the final assault. But and they do have other engagements with hunter killers, T-800s. You see how they are planning on fighting back, and how they are using the guerrilla tactics, that John is now in charge. This is the full-bore future war that we would all want. You would see this, or this would be like a 2-hour movie of nonstop action, nonstop war. And they would have to fight their way into the time displacement area. And you would see in this part where they are fighting in, and they're like, okay, break off a unit, go and reprogram a couple of T-800s. Because he knows that, I want you to reprogram 3 T-800s. One of them is a model 110, so to speak, the one that doesn't look like Schwarzenegger. Make sure that 2 of them do, or 2 of them are 101s. And John actually is part of that unit, and he has the other team secure the time displacement after the time displacement sends back the original Terminator. But also you see a mass of living tissue, like a shell of living tissue, being loaded on the time displacement chamber, or the time displacement device, and also being sent back. That's the T-1000. And you actually hear it say, prototype 1000 set for transport, or set for mission. So it would also show the technical buildup of growing the mass, and basically a giant, not needle-like apparatus, but something that would stab into it to inject the 1000 model into it. That's how I imagine that it would be sent back. That's my way of imagining it. And you would then see you would then have them secure it after after it was used twice. Now, yes, we also get a scene at the end of the credits, because that is how the movie ends. They're sending Kyle and those 3 Terminators back. And then they say, let's blow this area and let's get out and whatnot. What they don't show, which would play in a mid-credit scene, was just before the charges went off, a second T-1000 was sent back, which would indicate the one that goes back in the third movie. So to ensure that Skynet is created. So that's basically what I got so far. And what are your thoughts on it, Chris?
Well, so I think we both have, I think actually all of us have similar ideas. I think it'll change just a little bit. Do you mind if I run and go get a drink really quick?
Go ahead, man.
I was in the middle. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
It's okay. But yeah, those are my thoughts on, I mean, it's not, I don't have a solid story, so to speak, folks, but I do have the main crux of the story. I would be definitely paying attention to all the lore that is established in T1 and T2 to make sure that there is proper continuity, to ensure that what happened in the first two movies is referenced properly in the third and fourth. And I'm also taking a drink myself. So, yes. And what is this? Nope. I'm not answering that while I am live, Marty. Sorry.
All right, hold on. Let me get
Welcome
back on here.
Chris. Yeah, somebody just tried, or the Mongo just tried doing a live chat. It's like, if you want the link, Marty, I can send you the link if you want to join the discussion.
Okay, so, like I said, I think we both would have very similar ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But so I would start in 2000, where you have your Judgment Day. This is 8 years after T2. And what we would do is we would be with John and Sarah along with Danny Dyson. Those would be our three characters, our main characters in this part. They would all be working to fend off Cyberdyne and Skynet from taking over. And even though Cyberdyne was destroyed in the T2, being a company, they have multiple locations. This is just one of them. By 2000, Danny would have been like 18, 19.
All right. So in 1995 was when the events of T2 took place, because John was 10 years old.
Yeah. So I might move that up a little bit, but let's see here. He was 10. Was Danny 10 in that one?
I would say that Danny was
a little younger.
A little young John. He would have been like, hold on. Yeah, it jumped. He would have been like 8 years old.
Okay, so we'll just go 10 years, make him 18. We'll go with 2005 as my start.
Okay.
And I can adjust all this actually really easily. Not too hard, actually. Okay. All right. So we'll start with 2005. Danny would be 18, but a prodigy because his dad was pretty damn smart. And we'll just say that he has got, because of Sarah and John, they want him to work within Cyberdyne and Skynet to be their inside man, to make sure that they have a tab on what they're doing. So he's going to have privy information from the future. He's going to know what's going on, but he's seen Arnold from the second movie. So he kind of has an idea, and we've established that they more than likely are going to find a way to have him trust them. And we'll start with him being with Cyberdyne, and John and Sarah would continue their story mostly in Mexico, continuing a recruitment of forces for a war that may never come. And it'll be very apparent that even though they think it's over, Sarah finds it very hard to fully buy into it's over. And that's the same thing that happened with the first in 2, is like she just had that feeling. So we would spend the first part of the movie basically prepping that part of the story that Danny's working here. And we would wonder, okay, so he started working here. Is he a part of this? Is he trying to rebuild what his dad tried to destroy? And at some point we would have basically a phone call or something from John or Sarah to him where where you start hearing him explain this is what they're doing. I'm trying to watch what's going on. I know this is happening and this is happening, but then you find out he's an inside man working with them, that he now is fully aware of what Cyberdyne and the Skynet program. By now, they will be actually developing the Skynet program. And he's in it to basically not destroy it, but at this point in time, just watch its development to make sure nobody's going to make it go live.
Mm-hmm.
During this time, we would have 2 jumps. We'll go with 2007 and 2010. As that goes along, Danny will find his way in the first one. He will be higher up in the company. He will actually be in charge of the Skynet program by this time. And now, in the first jump, both jumps would have close calls with Skynet. In the first jump, the military will try to take Skynet over because of they want to use it as a defense mechanism in their wars and just general defense of the United States. And it is now fully finished in 2007. Danny has seen its full completion, but it's dormant. So it's more like it's not on a floppy disk, but it is separated from any live system where it can go into. It is literally in a box by itself. Yeah. Everything that needs to be. It's in a room, but that room is not attached because Danny has made sure. He says, listen, we can't let this thing open to the world. Can't let anybody get into it. We can't have it attached to any phone lines, any Ethernet. It has to stay dormant by itself there. And so it's in this building. It's well protected because the military is interested in it. So they do what they can to put money towards its protection, because Danny has talked with the defense contractors and like, let's say the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he has voiced his worry about what he thinks could happen. And because he now has the information from John and Sarah, he basically tells them, listen, you make this thing go live. We don't absolutely know what it'll do. We need to make sure we know. We got to test it. We got to run, simulations. And so he's basically biding time with Joint Chiefs and all of them by saying, we can't let this go live, because what if it takes over, and what if it attacks us? What if it takes over your systems and you no longer have control of anything? And even though they're trying to take over Skynet, they decide, okay, well, he's got a good point. There's some people there that are listening to him that are high enough up that they decide to back off. In the second one, in the second jump, it would be 2010. And that actually would be with the military actually dissolving Cyberdyne, taking over Skynet, and basically bringing Danny in as the person in charge of Skynet. Like, this is your baby. You know everything about it, but we're taking it. But they keep him because he knows more about it than anything. During these times, we will also have interactions with Sarah and John. John would probably be one of the people to come and actually go with Danny and kind of be there. Danny's, there'd be some interaction with them. I mean, again, I don't have this all written out. I could give me a week. I'll have you a small script or a proof for you. So 2010 comes, military takes it over. Dan says, guys, I'm telling you, you got to be careful with this. And so they're still still willing to listen to him, but they've taken over, dissolved Cyberdyne. Skynet is now in full control. It is fully controlled by the military. But Danny is the stopgap. We would come to 2012. 2012, John and Sarah are back in LA, and Danny gives them a frantic call and says, guys, I need to meet with you. He goes, he meets, and he explains that the military has now cut him out completely. and they have full control of Skynet, and he thinks they're going to make it go live. He thinks they're going to plug it in, and they believe that all the bugs have been worked out because he has bided to the time as much as he can. He has staved them off as long as he can because now he has nowhere to go. He keeps on saying, I think we need more simulation. I think we need this. I think I need that. He has used all exhausted excuses he can come up with. And 2012 comes along, and that is when Judgment Day happens. Now, before Judgment Day, we would, in 2010, we would probably see Arnold come back, and he would actually go to John and Sarah, and what we're going to get is the T-800 from T2. We'll get that one back. He comes back. Sarah loses it and says, what are you doing here? Because we're just going to go past the point where she flips out, thinks he's back to kill him, and they're getting past that. And he explains, John sent me back because in this altered future, and he can explain, when Cyberdyne was destroyed by Miles Dyson, that would have ended it. It was when Danny went to go back to work that this started back up, which they thought that by keeping Danny there, at least they would have some control and understanding of what was going on. That actually they find out by getting him there, they again unknowingly began the steps to Judgment Day again. And by this time, though, 2010's around, that's when I would have Arnold come back, and he tells them, and that's when they get the phone call. They find out that, oh my God, this is going on. And they're still preparing and all that. When we get to 2012, all that happens. This is when we're going to get the T-1000 Robert Patrick. We will get the TX, the Christiana Loken one. We're going to bring her back, or we're going to bring her in, even though she wasn't technically in this. Because I like her TX.
Yeah.
And then we're going to bring another Robert Patrick in, but he will be a Rev 9. I like the Rev 9. I don't care if you want to call it Legion or not. We're not going to call it Legion. We're just going to have the Rev 9, and it's going to be Robert Patrick also. But it's going to be bigger and badder. Those three are going to be against Arnold. And then at the 2012 mark, the T-100 from the first movie will come back, but that will be reprogrammed also. So you'll have two Arnolds against the rest of these Terminators. And this first fight happens when they find out that the countdown is on to plug it in. Danny has warned them. They start to head to Cyberdyne to try to take over with both of these Terminators. The second Arnold, the T-100, the 101, would show up in 2012. The 800 would be from 2010. And when they get close, or when they start going towards there, what they would find out is that these other three are also there. And by the way, I would bring, if this is pretty much whoever you want in it is in it, I would have tried to bring Edward Furlong back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I want him to be John. So all the original actors from T2 is who I'd want in this. But so Robert Patrick is the T-1000 and the Rev 9 and Christiana Loken would all three basically go after these different pockets of them, because we're going to say that the 800 and the 101 separate to try to we'll say that they know where the military is going to try to take over or start it. One of them will go there. Another one's going to go to where they keep it, like the server room, for lack of a better word. And somehow Skynet has found out about this or knows that they're going to do this, and they send the Robert Patrick one after one of the Arnolds and the Rev 9 one against another one of them. Take your pick which way they go. And Christiana Loken, which is not known to John or Sarah, will go after John and Sarah and Danny. And I would also make that story in a sense of she comes first, very like maybe tries to get a hold of them as in, I'm a concerned person who's part of the military trying to start this up. I want to meet with you guys. I have information for you. She would find a way to do something like that. Again, infiltrate. In the process, when we get down to it, all of these parts are converging towards different parts, one to the military headquarters of Skynet, one to the server because they know better than keep them in the same place, one to go to the server. And I don't know. Well, let's just use NORAD. NORAD's where they keep the server. Even though NORAD is not used as it was in the 80s, that's where they put it because it's in ground. It's safe. They know that it can be kept there. But in the process of all of this, Cristiano Loken does catch up to John and Sarah. And Danny goes ahead and separates. He decides he's going to go and again try somehow to take over the controls at the military installation. And I would go, since this happens in LA, I would go ahead and say something like where El Toro used to be in LA, which is the Marine Corps, the largest air base that the Marine Corps had when I was in. I would actually make that where they take it back over, a part of it back over, and that's where the headquarters for Skynet goes. That is where the military people in charge of Skynet go, and he goes there, and what he's going to try to do is, one, talk to them again. If not that, he's going to try to hack the system and take over. So this separates John and Sarah, and Danny. And when he goes, Danny runs into whichever one you want to say, the Rev 9. I'd say the Rev 9 goes after the military because it could rip through it, and we'll put the T-800 against the Rev 9, which doesn't really change much, but okay. And he goes there. And so we have Danny, Rev 9, T-800 at the military complex. And you have the original T-1000 and the T-101 going towards the NORAD. And John and Sarah, in all this process, is trying to gather the troops together, gather their people together and say, listen, you need to go find your safe spot, because if this happens, you guys have to be bunkered. So they're making their phone calls. They're doing what they can to get a hold of all these people to say, bunker and be prepared for the worst, because they just see the countdown happening. They've been told Judgment Day is going to happen. And while they're trying to stop it, again, they're preparing that it won't be stopped. What will happen is Cristiano Loken will catch up with John and Sarah. In the process, they think they're getting information or something. Cristiano Loken, the TX, ends up injuring Sarah. Let's say, I would do something pretty bold, like shoot her leg off, cut her arm off, something major that's like pretty damaging, that's pretty evident that she's going to die. And we would be cutting back and forth between all of these different things. I don't know if I would actually show Judgment Day happen yet, but what I would do is basically these fights happen. I would actually pretty much destroy all the Terminators right there, either right at the end of the movie or about at the end of the movie. And then Judgment Day happens. In the process, Sarah being wounded, she hears, I guess, you see the missiles go off. And let's say that they've kind of what they did in T3. They're close to that mountain range or something. She basically tells John, you have to go. You know who your father is. You have to go. You have to prepare yourself that you're going to be the one to find him. He's somewhere. He will live, but you have to find him, because if you don't find him, you don't exist, and this never happens. Everybody dies. Everything goes away. And so we see him try to get to a bunker. And again, like I said, I don't know if I would show all this in the first movie or if I would leave it at a cliffhanger and then start it up, the second movie up. But this would be near the end, big climax, which would have no good ending either way. You would either see, what I would do is, like I said, I'd have the 800 and the Rev 9 at the military complex, Danny there, and basically Danny gets injured and killed. The T-800 uses his core to kill the Rev 9, or let's say think he kills it. Skynet goes live at the same time. This would happen relatively quick succession in NORAD. You would have the T-101 against the T-1000 Robert Patrick. They both show up. The T-101 would be trying to deactivate Skynet, while the 101 would want them to keep it going. And they would both mortally injure each other to a point where they couldn't exist anymore, or they be destroyed. And again, all this time, what you would do is you would have a countdown that Skynet would have gone live. It would have set the timer for the launch, and that adds your buildup and your tension. And again, either we end it where we're watching it almost fully count down, and when you start the next one, all you do is you start from a distance and show everything going boom, 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 the place just going up.
Yeah.
This would also leave it so if you wanted to bring a couple of these Terminators back, you could. Like if perhaps the T-1000 lived, I would definitely kill both the T-800 and the 101. I would make sure they're gone in the first one. Mm-hmm. But remember, that's the past. When we get to the future, they'll show back up. What we would do after that happens, you would see that John is the first leader of the resistance. He gets to the, I don't know if we want to do the same one, but there's the same similar place wherever a president would go, a bunker. He makes it to a bunker like that he has communications, and it is the one that everybody expects the information to come from. He would be the first leader of the resistance. But as the dust settles at the beginning of the future war, where Skynet does have their hunter killers and their first Terminators, military commanders who lived through it, who were bunkered, would come out, and they would have their troops, people who were loyal to them because they knew their ranks, they knew their accomplishments, they were better at their war strategies, whatnot. As time goes on and John meets more of these people, he kind of gets pushed aside. Listen, you don't know everything about war. You don't know how to gather these troops. You don't know how to deploy. There's the word. You don't know how to deploy troops properly. You don't know how to, strategize against, an enemy. And he tries to talk his way through it, but his mom's not there to help him. He does it the best he can, but he basically finds a military leader who listens to his story and says, okay, here's what I'll do for you. You can be my right-hand man. You can help me. As the war goes on, what we would find out is that we will follow a bunch of different skirmishes and military actions where John's not a part of it. What's going to happen is John's going to get from this particular leader that he finds a guerrilla unit together, and his whole mission to himself and what the leader he's with understands is that if I don't find Kyle Reese, none of this is ever going to happen. And he doesn't explain what the whole idea is. He just says, listen, this war and its success, our success in this war comes down to this one guy, and I have to find him. He gets a guerrilla unit, and we're going to split between the future war scenes where he's fighting and John, which over this time, what we're going to find out is that he's going to find the T-101 and the T-800, or the different models. As time goes along, he'll gather these up and he'll reprogram them because he knows how to reprogram from two.
Yeah.
And when he does that, they'll be on his side. That will set us up for when we do find Kyle Reese. We get Kyle Reese. Yeah. We have the two Terminators he sends back. Basically, what we get to is they get to Skynet. They destroy Skynet, but he knows the only way it works is if he sends Kyle Reese back and he sends these two Terminators back. And so that's what we do. The last scene would be him sending Kyle and then sending each of the different Terminators that he sent back. Mm-hmm. And that would be the end of the movie because that's where it would end. So it's a full circle. Basically, what you would get, and this is the problem with time, is that time is nothing but a loop. It basically, in order for it to do what it did, that's what he has to do. And we don't need to see what happens to him afterwards. We don't need to see a happy ending necessarily showing that life went on and the human
Well,
civilization.
yeah, because nobody knows what happens after the time displacement.
Exactly. So basically, that's what we get. We get him individually sending back each one of those. He says, "Okay, I know I need to send back the T2, the Terminator for T2." So I guess you'd have to have him have 3. Pardon me for my miscount. Yeah, and you would have him have the 3 different Terminators that are by his side that help him in these guerrilla warfares to find Kyle. And basically, that's what you find out, is that Kyle was actually saved, and their success, because by that time you would find out that this one leader that John was working with had become the leader of the resistance. And then when he actually dies during a skirmish, that's when John takes over. John also would have the Terminators fighting by his side. This would also make a little more sense of how they took over, because the full fact of that it was only humans that did it. You would think with the advanced technology of Skynet and all of their different Terminators they would have in the future war, that you would have to get a hold of some of that technology and use it against them. So I think that would also answer having 3 Terminators, even though they're older models, they're rugged, and basically, so you'd have to the space. The 101 would be first, and then he would get 2 800s, and at some point,
the 101
I would also,
and the 800 are one and the same.
They are, but they're a little different if I remember right. But
the T101 or the 101 is just the model number of the T800.
That's right. Anyways, he would get a hold of 3 of those.
Yeah.
And during the future parts, we would actually get the part before they take over Skynet, where Skynet sends their 4 Terminators, that being Arnold in the first one, Robert Patrick, the T1000, Christian Loken, and now a one-off model that they would find out about right when they take over. They would find out through the computer system that they had made one prototype, call it the Rev 9, and that it was sent back. And when John looks at all the tech specs on the Rev 9, he realizes how dangerous it is. And all he has is these 3. And he's like, well, I have to do it this way. Or these 4, I mean, I'm sorry. He says, well, I have to do this way. Or no, it would be 3. Yeah, the first one and then the 2 he sends back. And that's all he can do. But he knows he's there and he remembers what happened. So that's what it is. And he can't stop the fact that he also knows that that's what kills his parent or his mom. So, but yes, very much a full circle. And the last scene would be him sending back. I would almost send back the T2 one last, because you could give him almost some sort of a touching moment with him, even though he wouldn't, that model wouldn't understand, because I don't think he would ever have changed any of their actual programming. He keeps them very much just, shoot and kill, like give him a target and this is what your target is. But you give him a touching moment where he sends him back and he realizes that this is the father figure he's sending back, and he remembers what it meant to him, and you give him that moment. But as soon as you see the last one go, it would just fade to black, and that's all you need.
Yeah. The one problem, or the one thing that I have, or that I would critique on yours, is that by having this guy that John has to run the strategize or the strategies and whatnot, I feel that there is a risk of making John less than what he is known to be.
No, because here's the thing. I wouldn't make it like that. I would basically make it where the guy realizes, okay, I would have John give this guy enough information that he kind of understands that John knows what's going on, and that John doesn't really work for him as much as he's being protected by him, because people are trying to push him back. He says, I'm going to make you my second, but you say you need to do this. I'm going to let you do it. I'm going to give you the means to go do this. And when you do find this guy, they would come back together. And during one of these fights, maybe during the push to Skynet, he dies. or let's say before the push to Skynet, there would be a moment where it's very clear that John was becoming the leader of the resistance. Yeah. Either we would see it during some of the skirmishes where as the leaders die off because they get killed, because I don't think you make him the leader of the resistance immediately. Hold on.
Yeah.
Because I do like that about Salvation, that he isn't the leader yet.
Yeah.
There is some need, and I think that gives him the out instead of being on the front line, him finding Kyle Reese. Because it's very obvious that Kyle Reese says that he saved us. He found us. And Kyle Reese wouldn't know anything in the future war of why he's finding these people. He can find people as he goes along. He says, okay, last place that we heard this Kyle Reese guy or whatever was here. And they go there. They free a bunch of people. And he's not there. Okay, well, they go to another place. And they're trying to find him. But as they free people, he gets known as the man who's trying to free and teach people to fight. And that's what he can do the whole time is, he can keep these people with him, and his guerrilla unit could get bigger and bigger until, and by that, then basically because the other commander who basically said, here, you're going to be on my side, but I'm going to let you do your thing. That way, these people don't think you're, they're not trying to keep pushing you back and back. Because truthfully, if military leaders were to survive, which you'd have to figure some of them were going to, because they're going to know this is coming. They're going to hide in their bunkers. They're going to hide as many troops and whatnot that they can. Military leaders would definitely push somebody like John all the way down to the bottom. But he gets to one leader or one general, let's say, who realizes this guy knows a lot more than maybe anybody else does. How does he know what we're fighting? How does he know how this happened? Because John would explain enough without going into, I know because my mom told me about it because of this, this, and this. I don't want John to have to tell anybody, because I think even in a future war, they'd think, oh my God, this guy's lost his mind, get him away from us. So John would be smart enough to understand I can't tell them exactly how I know. I can just give them enough information that they can tell I know more than maybe anybody else.
Yeah.
And this one guy just basically buys into, okay, maybe I need to listen to them. And like I said, as time goes on, he frees more and more people. His unit gets bigger and bigger, and maybe that's how he becomes the leader of the resistance, is that his unit becomes big enough that he becomes a full-fledged commander, and then the highest commander was his commander, perhaps, and that man either dies, or then when they all come back together, he says, you found him, great. If he's the future and he's on your unit, then then now you are the commander. And he hands over. I mean, again, if you want me to write a treatment for it, I can. I came up with the basic ideas of this over the past couple of weeks, thinking how would I do it. But if I sat down and did a treatment on this, it'd take me probably about a week and a half to really do a good outline, and I would definitely do it for you if you want it. But that's basically but the idea here is I think it's really important to keep both Arnolds in it. I think it's really important to have Robert Patrick back. I love the Rev 9 enough that I'd want Robert Patrick to be that. Because I think it would have been really awesome if they had done that in Dark Fate, if they'd gotten Robert Patrick back as that T-1000.
Yeah.
And the Rev 9, or the Rev 9, I mean.
Would you call it something different other than Rev 9, or?
I don't know. I think Rev 9's cool. Doesn't matter. I mean, I guess we're assuming that the other ones weren't made, correct?
Yes.
So it wouldn't matter if I called it the Rev 9, because nobody would think, oh, Dark Fate, really? No. Because I like the name, the Rev 9, the Revolution 9 or something, or call it the R9000 or the T9000, I guess. You could call it the T9000. There you go.
T9000 is more advanced than Skynet. He was a T5000.
I know, but whatever.
Well, let's call it a T2000
or T1010.
Just don't call it a T1 million. That one was taken.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I do like the idea that the T1010 It's just a variation of that same one. And since his base look is Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
So,
hey, it works, yeah.
But, and I would definitely bring that TX into it, the Christiana Loken one, only because that adds a very good infiltrated that Sarah and John never have seen. And I do believe that that would be the way to get Sarah. And I would very much kill Sarah off before the bomb drops. I'd actually make her die during the bombs.
Judgment Day.
Yeah, because I think that's how it happened. I mean, granted, we don't really know, but T2, if the extended cut, that's constantly made clear that she dies when those go off. And so I think maybe perhaps that would be very fitting that the last scene you see in the first movie is her as the sky goes, and she just sits there and, like a boss, just stares at it.
Well, that's interesting. I did not know
then
that
as soon as it
about
gets-
the Revs. Sorry, I'm also.
Yeah, and I wonder why it's called
Revision.
Revision.
Yeah, I know, right?
Their ninth
Because it was a
revision of the
revision.
But I think maybe seeing her as the cloud and everything destroys, it'd almost be kind of cool to replay that T2 scene that was in her dream. Like a bomb gets dropped in the middle of LA. She's outside of LA, close to where John got to the bunker, and she just watches this cloud, and then it shows the buildings going, and then as that cloud's coming closer, of course, this all happens instantaneously anyways, but we're going to slow it down to where she just stares at it like a boss and takes it. Because if she gets John on his way and John's safe, she's going to know that she's done her job, because that's what she was told. Her job after T1 is to protect John.
Yeah.
And she has done that to a point that he's old enough now that he's become
what he needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I do have some minor conflict with that one idea. I mean, don't get me wrong. I always feared that was the possibility for the longest time myself, that she did die on Judgment Day. But
well, let's before you continue.
Okay.
I don't. Or Ross says he doesn't think the extended scenes say she was killed. It's a subliminal. It's basically a subliminal hint, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Is what Chris is, or I'm guessing is what Chris is basically getting at when he says that she dies on Judgment Day in the movies. Is that it's kind of subliminally hinting at that is when that will be her time to go.
I honestly believe that if you kill her off, if you wound her, mortally wound her, and yet she sits there and she takes it, it shows how strong her character is. She known this time was coming. She always believed it was coming, no matter how far away they thought they were from it, no matter if they thought they had stopped it. That's what I want to make very clear in the first movie is that she's still preparing for it. Even though she doesn't think it's going to happen, or even though they believe it's done, she's still going to prepare for it because that's all she's ever done. It's all she's ever known. Hold on just a sec.
Yep.
Sorry. And so by doing so, when she finally gets John on his way, or get her right there to make a similar scene as you see in T3 where John's trying to get to that bunker, make it him and Sarah. And that fight happens, and she tries to, she does everything she can to save him. In the process, she gets mortally wounded, and she looks at him, and as he's trying to save her, and says, "You have to live. I don't. I've fought my whole life. I have done everything I can to get you here. You need to get in that bunker, and this moment can happen. If you don't get in there, it never will."
Yeah.
And then he leaves her. You would see the moment when the bombs go off. You would see her. You wouldn't see her die. I would actually go to black right then when it hits where she's at. That way you never see it. It's implied. And I just think there's a much stronger statement if you kill her off before then, because it gives him a reason to be to be stronger, knowing that she has sent him off, and it makes him hardened too. It gives him a hardened reason to hate these things, to go after them immediately. The one thing I hated about T3 was that he always, even at the time when he answers, he's kind of like, who's in charge? I am. Like, he's not even really sure of himself at this point. I want him to be sure of himself in here. I want him to be prepared. I want them to know it's coming again, and I want somebody to tell them it's coming again. And I think by doing that, him knowing about all this stuff makes him stronger.
Yeah.
And then the second one, like I said, there's a lot of different stuff you could do, but yeah.
But it inevitably ends where I also end up with the sending back of Kyle and the Terminators.
Yep. And
so,
you see, basically you see John there by himself. I wouldn't even put anybody with him. He tells the others after they've won, they've beat Skynet. He says, "There's one more thing I have to do," and whoever his second in command is, or whatever you can say. Actually, you know what? Make Kyle his second in command. Kyle, you need to come with me. There's one more thing we have to do.
Also, tell his unit to set the charges, because as Kyle says, they blew the place as soon as after I left.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Or they were meant to blow the place.
Though one can argue that was from Kyle's perspective.
Yeah. Well, it also kind of would make sense because he doesn't want any more Terminators going back.
Yeah.
He wants the time displacement system destroyed completely.
Uh-huh. I was under the impression originally that, in a way, Kyle Reese was right. They did blow the time displacement, but then a few months later, as the Resistance were destroying more Terminators, one independent units that weren't connected to Skynet when it was shut down, they discovered that there was another time displacement chamber, and they captured that for themselves to use. Hence Terminator 2. But
it's possible. So Mega Jetty, how would you do your sequel or sequels?
My Terminator 3? Well,
yeah.
Terminator 3 and 4. You get two movies.
Oh, I get two movies.
You get a total of 2 to play out your story.
Oh, wow.
Play out your continuation.
Oh, now he's like, ooh, really?
Well, I have so many.
Get those creative juices flowing, boy.
Oh, sorry, you first.
No, I was just saying, get your creative juices flowing, boy.
I'm trying. It's just I have so many different ideas. It's just, where do I begin?
Well, continue directly from the end of T2.
Well, my idea kind of partially does, but at the same time, it doesn't. I guess one can argue the first shot you see the steel mill from the end of Terminator 2, right? It's like maybe a few days, maybe a week after the incident with Cyberdyne. And you see the workers are back. They're trying to repair. They're getting around all the damages and all that. And then there could be some cops there sorting through some stuff. But meanwhile, the workers are still trying to go about their jobs while the cops are going about theirs. Meanwhile, this one worker takes some molten steel out of this one big pool area, and then it starts getting cooled off accidentally, but it's still hot enough to be liquid-like. And then all of a sudden, shing, a blade shoots out of the puddle, and the puddle starts to move, revealing that the T-1000 is not entirely destroyed. It was partially destroyed, and it probably would have remained destroyed if it was solidified completely. But because it was still partially moist, it was able to pull itself out of the remnants of the molten steel. And
Did
then,
you say that word again? That word, that moist.
Liquid-like.
I know so many people have a problem with that word. It's like, when you go up to somebody,
what
like,
the hell is that?
You know what?
the bottom line is
I'm
because
kind of moist today. I'm just like, what?
basically they're trying to move some molten steel. There's like a spill, and then as the molten steel spills, it's getting cooled a little bit, and cool enough to still be, liquid like. And so because the T-1000 was part of that particular bit, it's able to just barely pull itself out, like that one image I showed you guys before. And so it's like trying to reshape itself, but it's struggling. It's not
so it's moist and it's getting pulled out at the same time.
Very funny.
I'm so sorry.
Fred.
I'm not trying to be an asshole.
It's okay. No. It's okay. It's like that Archer meme. Hey, phrasing.
Exactly.
Anyways,
we're ripping on you, dude. We're just ripping on you.
I can take a joke. I get a lot from my stepdad. But anyways, but yeah, the T-1000 kills a worker or two and maybe even a cop or two. He's trying to move across the floor, but he's like partial puddle and partial humanoid. It's like he's struggling. Yeah. He's, the combination of the liquid nitrogen and melting in the molten steel, it's like severely damaged him, but he's just struggling to maintain himself. So he's like able to get out of the steel mill and to a cop car and then drive away, and then just barely drive away. And then we cut. It shows the West Highland Police Station years later. The West Highland Police Station is the very same precinct that was shot up in Terminator 1. And as you see the sign, West Highland Police Station, camera pans down and reveals a car pulling up. Getting out of the car is a cop, a veteran detective, played by actor Dean Norris. He was in I think it's Better Call Saul or something like that, or Breaking Bad. I don't know, but he was also Big Jim in the show Under the Dome, and basically he was. Yeah. He was
the SWAT team. He was the SWAT team leader that made it, or that told everybody to get the hell out when.
Yeah, because he noticed, and he's the one who shot Miles Dyson.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, he's older. I'd have Dean Norris reprise his role in Terminator as like that same SWAT guy, but now he's wearing a suit and he's confined to a desk job, and he cradles his knee every now and then. And he's like, as he's entering, we're seeing the inside of the West Highland Police Station, slightly similar but more up to date. Different from what it was in 1984. And there's these young hotshot rookies who are like, hey, it's the old warhorse. They're like, they think because they're young and hip and into the new technology, cyber stuff, that they're better than the old warhorse who sticks to hard copy. And so he goes into his office where a lot of old files are and only one computer laptop that he's struggling to deal with. And so, he's almost like a boomer almost. And then his deputy, or glorified secretary, you could say, comes in trying to help him out with the computer. Says this footage was taken about an hour ago. Maybe it's something for you to work with. And then he takes a closer look at it, and his face is like got a serious look and a fearful look. And he looks up at his deputy, and he's like, "When was this taken again?" "An hour ago." "And we're only just now finding out about it." And then he gets up, he marches to his filing cabinet, pulls out a wanted picture, and then he marches out to the bullpen. Yeah?
Jeff, if you're going to play that up right, what you do is when he gets that picture, he says, we have all this computer shit that does stuff instantaneously, and you're telling me we just found out about this?
Yeah.
That's because he's showing that he's not very good, but he understands the power of this stuff.
Yeah, he understands policing.
Yeah, but he understands that they could get that to him instantaneously, and they're just now getting it. That really would show that he's understanding of technology. He just doesn't know how to use it, but he knows he should have had that picture a lot sooner than he got it.
Exactly. Anyway,
just that's a tweak.
Anyway, that's good, and that's good. And he gets to a filing cabinet, pulls out an old wanted poster, and then he marches right out to the the bullpen with all those that big room where I think it was the first room you saw in the precinct in the first movie when they introduced Traxler. It was like a crowded bullpen area. He marches out there and he's yelling, "All right, you little runts. I am told that we just found a high priority an hour ago, and I'm only just now finding out about it. All this advanced technology means shit compared to old-fashioned policing. Each and every one of you are sitting in seats that were occupied by police officers who were killed in this building in 1984. This station had 30 officers that night in 1984, and 17 of them died right where you sit." And then he shows them all the wanted picture of like Arnie in 1984, and it reads "The Phone Book Killer." And he's like, "Now, imagine this guy walking in here again just now and doing the same to you. What would you want? Would you want your fellow officers to avenge you?" And then, basically, he'd go back to, he basically would get them to stop being such young, cocky hotshots and take their jobs more seriously. They'd all get started on searching the web for any leads that could lead to the phone book killer. Anyways, and then he goes back to his office. He looks at the security footage, manages to press the right buttons to play the footage, and then you see what appears to be a grown man and a woman, like running out of a dark corridor into the light, and basically, the man is shooting at someone, and they're trying to avoid bullets being shot at them. They get out of the camera. They get out of the shot at the bottom, and then like the dark part, the dark corridor is like in the upper middle, and then he sees footsteps walking. And then the camera zooms in on Dean Norris, and you hear him yelling in Terminator 2, "Fall back!" You hear him ordering his men to get out of the Cyberdyne building, and then it cuts to the scene where they're shooting Arnie in the Cyberdyne corridor, and he basically cradles his knee in the scene, and then and then here's where I do a slight retcon scene. Shoot a new scene where it shows Dean Norris in his SWAT gear cradling his just injured knee, and then he's looking up at the guy who shot him and is currently shooting his fellow officers. And there's like a moment where Arnie looks down at the SWAT leader, because the SWAT leader, Dean Norris, he was the first one that got the bullet in the knee. So he takes a
he wouldn't have been in that scene because he was evacuating out the back stairs.
I think the back stairs were beside the lobby. I think I could be wrong.
No, they weren't. That was a back entrance.
Okay, well, it's a minor retcon, but still, it's to help tell the scene. Basically, he looks up at the guy that just shot him in the knee in the lobby. He was the first one to get shot, and then the Terminator takes a quick moment, looks down at him, and then as he's looking down, Dean Norris, even with his mask, even with the gas, he can see the glints of metal underneath the damaged flesh. And then as the Terminator turns his head back to reconcentrate shooting at the remaining officers in the knees, he remembers that even though this guy had killed 17 out of 30 police officers in the West Highland Police Station, here he was just injuring the cops, not actually killing them. So and then the fact that he sees the metal glint under the flesh, he's like, he didn't know what to think. And now, years later, after the T2 incident, he's like been trying to find this guy the old-fashioned way while everyone else was getting more up to date on things. And then as he's watching the footage still, he sees the footsteps come out of the darkness, and he sees like biker clothes, and then zoom in on Dean Norris. He's like, "What the fuck are you?" And then that's when it shows the picture of Arnie still looking almost like he did in T2 or T1.
Nice.
And then basically this is basically telling how the events of the first two films are carried over years later after the fact, because that was the one thing in Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines that kind of bothered me, was that yeah,
Real quick, I gotta go get my son, but I'm gonna jump on my phone, so let me
okay.
get in my car and get going, but I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
I just want to let you know. All right.
Yep.
But yeah, basically, because that was the one thing I loved about Terminator 2 was that, you know, they acknowledged the events of Terminator 1, even though it was set 11 years after the fact. And then it's like in Terminator 3, the only one that recognized the Terminator was Dr. Silberman, and but the cops, they didn't seem to recognize him at all. It was like they were baffled. They were like, drop the weapon and the coffin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they didn't even recognize him at all. And there was no mention on the radio or nothing.
Exactly. And that's because they were too focused on a freaking humorous element in T3.
Yeah. Yeah, not to mention, for all the good things of Terminator 3, there's just so many continuity issues even in that, and understandably.
Yeah.
But
they
yeah,
said that John Connor was 13 in fucking T2, wherein he was only 10
the
years
actor
old.
was 13, but the character was 11 at least, or 10 or 11.
No, he was 10.
Yeah, 10 or 11.
It was
yeah,
95.
Yeah,
it was 1995.
He was born in February of
85.
85. Yeah, and it was about 10 years after the fact. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, basically, yeah, the thing is, I would have this story open with the T-1000 remerging, and then I would have like several years pass, and you know, one survivor of the Cyberdyne incident, who not only is a survivor of that, but also knows of the 84 incident. He's been hunting for the T-800 for a long time, and also curious about, you know, Sarah and John, because really, when you have I know it may have been the 80s where there wasn't much internet. When you have one guy, even if it is actually a machine disguised as a man, if you have one guy walk into a police station in 1984 Los Angeles, shoot 17 out of 30 police officers, and walk out to tell the story, you know, I would think that would, you know, make him a high profile that would not be forgotten, even
be on a federal watch list.
Yeah, even 20 years later, for that matter. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like, and then he came back. He got spotted at a mall, was spotted breaking out an inmate who he once tried to kill in a mental asylum. And then to him and said inmate that he once tried to kill are seen blowing up a computer factory. So, you know, it creates a lot of fishiness, and yet still connects to one another. So now you have a cop who is, you know, dead set on finding this phone book killer, but also knows there's something more to it that he's not seeing. And that's why, you know, he went from gung-ho SWAT officer to desk cop, who is actually asking questions. And then that way, and then we find out, and then right after that clip where he's taking this seriously, we go back and find out what led into him finding that surveillance footage. It's revealed John Connor, now a grown man, actually is what they initially did not want him to be in Terminator 3. He's a simple, ordinary guy in an office building, you know, working with computers. Basically, he's like Mr. Anderson in The Matrix. But he like remembers, you know, everything that happened. You know, he's just trying to get on with his life. He thinks that he prevented Judgment Day and everything. And his mother, she's like maybe living out in the middle of nowhere, because even though she should be happy, she's been having a hard time re-assimilating back into society that she once grew up in.
Well, not only that, she'd be wanted.
Yeah. And then the only way they really could, you know, get back into society is if, you know, they just moved out of LA and just moved to a small town in a different state. But other than that,
Sarah would be wanted for, or she's suspect in many or in killings. She'd be wanted, or she'd be on a federal watch list, just like Uncle Bob or the Terminator.
Yeah, even if she
So they
could
would
come up
have
with
to get.
fake
They
IDs,
would have to get out.
Yeah, even with fake IDs, it would definitely be difficult for her to try to create a new life, right?
She'd be, or basically, she'd be down in Mexico.
Yeah. But John, even though he was connected to her and all that, he was only a minor, so he could try to get back into some semblance of normalcy, even if his life is was turned upside down. And I guess you could say, even though time has passed, he would be convinced that his mother can come back. She's just reluctant to do so. But
that's possible.
But basically, he's going about his life. He meets this girl. You could say it's grown-up Kate, or it's some new girl entirely. Basically, he's interacting with her and all that. But then one day, someone is coming at him at his place of work and tries to take him out. And that's basically the Arnie Terminator coming after him. And then an Arnie Terminator shows up to try and protect him. And so you got two Arnie bots. You got the one sent to protect and the one sent to kill. Which one's going to succeed? All the while, the T-1000 is still out there on the loose and recovering from the Terminator 2 incident. And so basically, that's what caused the security footage, is that when the Terminator, the bad Arnie, tried to kill John in his place of work, him and the girl he was with are trying to run for their lives, but John, having had a gun on hand to defend himself with, is trying to fight back. So
interesting.
Yeah, he's even though he's supposed to be a that's what the thing. I mean, he's supposed to be a soldier and a protector. So yeah. As he's trying to make a run, he's found by the good Arnie. He's trying to get them to safety. All the while, the cops arrive at a place where the good Arnie, and John and his girlfriend are. They're all about to be. They're trying to run from the bad Arnie, but they're confronted by the cops. And as the cops are aiming their guns at the good Arnie's about to do his pacification of, like in the Cyberdyne building. I swear I will not kill anyone. But, he would try to take out their kneecaps. But this time, John is smart. He realizes he can't do this. Otherwise, people will get hurt or killed. And he says, I hate to say this. You need to stand down. Let them take us in. The T-1000 will likely the T-800 will likely reacquire us. We have to risk it. We need to show them we're not the bad guys. And then
I would actually, if I may, I would actually, I wouldn't have two Arnies. I mean, yeah, I know that was an original concept, but it would, to me, that kind of, that would actually, for most audiences now, would be a little too confusing for some.
I understand. But I guess you could differentiate the two by, the good Arnie looks like the T2 version and the bad Arnie looks like the the T1 version. But even still,
that would work.
Yeah. And but basically, yeah, because John convinces the T-800, the good Arnie, to stand down, good Arnie drops his guns, gets down on his knees, and puts his hands on his head. And so that's when Dean Norris walks up, and he's like, he's expressing anger, but you could tell there's still uncertainty inside of him. And then kind of like in Avengers, when there was a slow scene of Loki being walking, escorted through the helicarrier. There's this slow shot of the police, both plainclothes cops and SWAT teams, escorting a T-800 Arnie in handcuffs into the very station that a predecessor of his shot up in 1984. So it's almost like all roads lead back to the West Highland police station almost. And so as soon as John and his girlfriend are placed in processing, Arnie, good Arnie, he's like locked into an interrogation room where the detective is going to try and question him, get answers. The Terminator obviously can't answer too much, but he can answer what he can. You know, he'll try to convince him that there is more than one of me, and the other me that you are familiar with is already long since terminated. You know,
Yeah.
so he would try to do that at least. And so basically he would understand there's more people that have the same look as him, and not all of them are the same. That would explain some of the weirdness that he's going through. So, but how do I know I can trust you compared to the one from 1995 and 1984? And then the T800, the good Arnie can't answer that. And so he walks out of his office, but here's where it gets interesting. Dean Norris, having gotten some of his questions answered, walks into his office, picks up a phone. His hand is slightly shaking, and he's dialing a number. And he's like, "It's me. I found them." And then you see, right after that, you cut to the other end of the phone. The person that picked up the phone that Dean Norris called is in fact Robert Patrick, but he looks older. The reason being because of the damage that he sustained in the steel mill. It disrupted his most of his powers, his shape-shifting abilities. The most he could do was alter his appearance so that he can look like he aged. That was the best he could do. And so his default form is showing age, even though he's, still capable of looking his young version. And so the T-1000 gets the phone call from Dean Norris because it turns out when the T-1000 stole the cop car, it was Dean Norris's car, and Dean Norris was in the driver's seat. The T-1000 said, "Come with me if you want to live, or drive with you." So basically, it's sort of a subversion of the line, "Come with me if you want to live." It's like, you come with me, and I won't kill you.
All right. So how would you continue the story into like the future war?
Well, I'm getting there. This is still like my Terminator 3. Basically, the T-1000 said, "You will go back to the police station and you will be on the lookout for Sarah Connor, John Connor, and anyone affiliated with them, including the one that the Terminator." Basically, the officer Dean Norris, he was pretty much plot dumped already. He just had to play ignorant for a long time, trying to process it all, and he has now unwittingly just possibly sealed John Connor's fate by selling him out to the T-1000. The T-1000 also kind of informed him that Skynet can make the world better, but by evolving, by teaching humans how to be better. But, as long as John Connor keeps resisting that.
Are you going to turn Skynet good?
Not exactly. It's more like showing the flip side of the story, where if Skynet were good, this would be the motivation. It's just trying to help humanity by conquering it. Because, if Skynet were in control of the Earth and humans were the minority, Skynet could in its mind, can create a better future than us. After all, it already solved the time travel problem and created more advanced weaponry than us. So, in a sense, in Skynet's mind, it is the hero. And the T-1000 is just trying to tell that to a human in a way that it would be convincing. And that's what convinces him to sell out John Connor. But as he heard the story from the good Arnie that, he's just meant to protect John, he's starting to second guess his decision even after he's already made the phone call. And so basically the T-1000 is on his way, but he comes across the bad Arnie, and he basically tells the bad Arnie who and what he is, and then gives him some updated information that could help. So it's like Bad Arnie and the T-1000 are both going to team up and enter the police station to try and terminate John once and for all. But all the while, the moment that, like a desk sergeant will see, the Bad Arnie and realize, hey, what are you doing here? We already captured you. And then when the T-1000 tries to kill that guy, another cop sees that and then starts saying, alarm, sound the alarm. And then everyone's like, all the cops are grabbing their guns, shooting at Bad Arnie and the T-1000. All the while, everyone, but the two of them, the two Terminators, they're like doing the same. It's like the 1984 massacre, police station massacre all over again, but worse. It's two of them, one of them looking like a cop, and then worst of all, they know that the good Arnie is still locked up. So when Dean Norris is like about to be shot by Bad Arnie, he's pushed out of the way. It's revealed to be good Arnie having come to his aid. So then and then several other officers who were hidden behind desks, they see the good Arnie and realize that there are two of them. And so they realize which Arnie is on their side. So therefore, they work with good Arnie and work to get Sarah or they work to get John and his girlfriend out of the cell and out of the precinct, all the while holding back the the Bad Arnie and T-1000. And then once they're out, they make their way toward where they can find Sarah. They tell her everything and realize they got to prepare. It's too late. They can't prevent the war because they don't know when it's going to happen or even how it's going to happen. And all the while, the T-1000 and the Bad Arnie are after them, but Dean Norris and the surviving cops reach out to Sarah, John, and the good Arnie to back them up however they can. And so the cops that are now like partially the core of the resistance before the war's even begun. Basically, the first that Terminator 3 would end with Judgment Day, but it gets more interesting as well. This one idea I had was there is another Arnie Terminator. He's protecting this one guy like Arnie would normally protect John. But the person that is trying to kill the guy that the Terminator's trying to protect, by the end of the story, the guy that Arnie is protecting this one guy from is actually a human, not a bad Terminator. It turns out that the guy that Arnie is protecting is the guy who activates Skynet and therefore initiates Judgment Day. So in a way, it's like evil Arnie playing protector, but not really the protector. Like ensuring the survival of Skynet.
Mm-hmm.
So Dean Norris is the guy that creates or activates Skynet?
No, not Dean Norris. Dean Norris is just the T-1000's pawn. But Bad Arnie, while he was looking for John Connor, he was also supposed to protect this one guy, the one guy who would activate Skynet.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's like, but that subplot could be like a different, like its own standalone story. But yeah, the basic idea of the cops are hunting Arnie, even though there's both a good and a bad. Excuse me. And then when they capture the good one along with John, they realize that there are two of them, a good and a bad, and they decide to side with the good one when the good one saves one of them. So that's why the LAPD of before the war becomes sort of the foundation for John's TechCom unit. And then basically, yeah, by the end of this Terminator 3, Judgment Day does happen, and John, he realizes why he becomes the savior, but he doesn't need like his mother to die. No offense, but yeah, he doesn't need Sarah to die for him to motivate him. He sees
Sarah has to die. She has to.
She does, but that's not how it happens. I mean, yeah. as a kid, I thought too that she died during Judgment Day. I will admit I thought that initially. But
I still think that that's when it should happen. But my choice, not yours. I understand,
okay.
and go right ahead.
But my choice is more along the lines of the original novels, in that basically the her death is during the future war, like in the novels that were based on Terminator 1 and 2. And oh, hey, Ambassador. And that's basically how my Terminator 3 would end, Judgment Day. But
really quick, Ambassador, DM me on Twitter, please. Sorry, multitasking. Thank you.
That's okay. But yeah, then my future war is actually an interesting version. It's like it opens up like in 2029, skipping most of the war, because I feel like, and nothing against Salvation, it was a good start. But I really was going into that film expecting a film that was all like 2029. Already you had the new shiny silver chrome machines and the pink lasers. That's why I was a little let down when they were still old and industrial and rusty and using bullets. But I understand it was an earlier time in a different version of the future war. But yeah, basically my Terminator 4 would be set in the future, opening with a battle featuring John and Reese. And Reese has already been found and all that. And it turns out that John and Reese have just destroyed this one Skynet base, but they are looking for a particular base that John has been looking for a while. And Reese is important as well, so that's why he's been keeping Reese close to him as a security detail. And they do mention Sarah's name during the course of this, like she's down in Mexico gathering reinforcements. And then Reese and John, they go as like the end of Act 1 is they assault the base that John had been looking for a while now, because it wasn't easy trying to find this base. They break into the base. They defeat most of the Skynet units, but they get to the cold storage where a particular Terminator is. They find this Terminator. It is revealed to be the Uncle Bob Terminator from Terminator 2 in his prime before he is sent back to 1995. He and Reese take this unit. John does the reprogramming hacking, whether it's by himself or with some help from, tech scientists. Regardless, he successfully reprograms the Arnie Terminator. And Reese, he's a little unnerved by this, unnerved to be working with one of the things that he was, trained to destroy. But, John makes it clear that this because he technically had help from a Terminator once before. And a Terminator willing to lay down his life for me. A Terminator that wasn't bound to Skynet's influence. And because of that, the moment the Terminator is reactivated under reprogramming by John, this Terminator it contains information that John needs. The Uncle Bob, this is the Uncle Bob Terminator, and he has information. The location of the time displacement chamber. So basically, after Act 1, when they get Uncle Bob, it's Uncle Bob, Reese, and John in a race against time to get to the time displacement chamber before Skynet can activate it. Because that's always been the thing, One can argue that the war has only been allowed to continue because every time time displacement is used, someone or something is sent back and jump-starting this whole loop over and over and over and over again. But if you stop it here in the future, there's a chance they can finally break the cycle and move on. So basically, the story is a race against time to get to the time displacement before Skynet activates it. And so they're like trying to get to the location, and Skynet is literally throwing everything they got at him. Act 2 ends where John gets the sad, tragic news. His mother was on her way back from Mexico with the reinforcements, but got taken out by an HK aerial. And he has to like process this. They were so close, that he's so close to winning, to ending this loop and everything, only to get that tragic news. And so he's like trying to process, trying to toughen up, trying to stay battle hardened for his men. It's just, this is a very personal thing for him, because this is the woman that gave birth to him, made him who he is, and everything. And she meant the world to him, even if they didn't always see it eye to eye. So Reese, and maybe even Uncle Bob to an extent, but mostly Reese, sees how this has affected John. And he doesn't know too much about Sarah except from what John imparted to him after giving him the photo, like maybe a month or so prior. And he's like trying to convince John that she would not want you to be crippled by this. She would want you to keep going. And then Reese, in a sort of roundabout way, will be like, on your feet, soldier. And he'd have to inspire his own leader to get up on his feet, showing how he's already being a father to John, even if he doesn't know it. So it's like in that one moment, Reese was the father and John was the son. And even if Reese always looked up to John like he was the father to him, it's like that one moment the roles were as they were supposed to be. And then Act 3 is them making the final push to get the time displacement. They fight through many hordes of machines. The biggest, baddest ones are like at the last stretch. Heck, even the T1 million from Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time. But at the end,
well, the T1 million is a one of a kind that was used to guard Skynet's core. I wouldn't put them up against the T1 million because they would lose.
Okay. But yeah, essentially they're about to reach the time displacement, but then sadly it activates, and the T-800 from 1984 is sent back to 1984. So John and company are like too late. But so it's like the one thing they were trying to race against the clock against, they failed, but they can still race against the clock to, try again and again and again. And so when they reach the time displacement chamber, that's when, he has to send Reese and Uncle Bob back. First, he sends Reese, and it's heartbreaking for him. You have the same melody from the end of Terminator 2 when Uncle Bob was being lowered. And you have that play as Reese is being levitated off the ground and sent back in time, because it is a sad event, a sad goodbye. And then just as they're preparing to blow the time displacement chamber, that's when the T-1000 breaks in, steals the detonator, and then goes through the time portal. And that's what pushes for the need for Uncle Bob to go back.
That's an interesting take.
So yeah, and then basically you have it where the movie ends where, they started the cycle, started the loop, and now where do you go from here? I mean, the war is still going on against Skynet's independent models that weren't connected to it, and most of the world is already in ruins. And then even if the humanity can take the still working technology of Skynet to try and rebuild some cities while they fight to end the war once and for all, what's to stop mankind from repeating their mistakes?
Indeed.
And that's one of the reasons why the last line of the movie is John can only hope that by sending Reese and Uncle Bob back, they can keep trying to break the cycle in a way in the past rather than here in the future. Maybe that way the war doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Ended on the note that maybe Terminator 2 is the official ending, and this fourth film could have been the prequel almost.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. So with that, thank you, MJ.
Thank you.
All three of us have gotten our own different versions in. And I think that we will actually start wrapping it up and winding down. I do want to thank everybody in the chat: Ross, Cooper, Ambassadorial Wing, Vanja, myself. There was also my friend Marty Domingo and Riot Kitty. Thank you for stopping in, and Mega Jetty.
We had a lot of good people in the chat and a lot of good chat going on too the whole time.
Yep. LDG. Oh my God, I did not see you. I am so sorry, dude. But I will give you a thing here. How would I have done Terminator? I would have blown up all the theaters when John Connor was killed. Oh shit.
Sorry.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
One real quick thing I would like to add is that in my Terminator 4, I would acknowledge that some of the surviving officers did live up to 2029, and they were basically the foundation of TechCom, the John Connor's
unit. Said that.
Yeah, but
Shock. And that is all. But thank you so much for supporting this stream. This is the conclusion of the Terminator series. Before I do begin the Lord of the Rings discussions, I'm going to take a few weeks in between to actually do single movie discussions, not series. And coming up November the 5th, if you all know that date and which movie is a part of it, I do have room for the discussion for V for Vendetta and how it will, or how it, we're going to be discussing the movie, but we are also going to be comparing political notes because the movie is inherently political. And it does have some parallels to, well, kind of what's going on today, but not fully. So that is going to be the next movie discussion stream on November the 5th, Friday night. If you want to be on the panel, DM me on Twitter at OrangeHat2185. So I do want to thank Chris and Mega Jetty for joining me tonight. You guys are freaking awesome, and your takes for your sequels were pretty cool, to say the least. And
I tried.
You did more than try this time, pal. You succeeded. And I do want to thank all who have joined me as well. Marissa, Ambassador, AFK. They also were part of the panels for the Terminator discussions. And I'm very thankful for them for joining me on this, or for joining us during these discussions. Anyway, folks, that is going to wrap this one up. Stay tuned, or tomorrow night we'll not have a stream because I will be at the theaters watching Halloween Kills, so look forward to a spoiler-free review tomorrow night afterward. And hey Riot, thank you for listening in as well to those in the chat.
And
have
a good night, Riot.
Have a good night indeed. And Saturday afternoon I will release my spoiler review for Halloween Kills. Other than that, folks, Saturday morning, if you get up around 10 or 11 a.m., watch the full Aussie with Lethal Lightning, or it could be 9 a.m. I can't remember whether they pushed it forward or back. But yes, the full Aussie with Lethal Lightning, Raging Rhino, Lyndon Hall, and Steph from My Nerdy Home will be doing their full Aussie. And later that night, I believe Steph and Mara from Jade Shadow will be doing their Talk Nerdy. But tomorrow night, you can watch Jade Shadow on her channel, I believe, The Cringe Factory with Steak Kenobi. You can also catch Mega Jetty doing some live streams throughout. You can also catch Chris Knight doing his Chaos Central and his weekly roundup and weekly rumbles. These two are very much worth the subscriptions, folks. So definitely give them a sub. I'm trying to get to 2,000 watch hours before the end of the year. So if y'all want to help support me, take a look at my playlists. I have the versus streams that I do. I have the other movie discussions that I've done, Harry Potter, the Terminator ones, the Underworld streams, and so many others. And with that, folks, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. How would you do a Terminator sequel in the comment section? Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Orange Hat Reviews and panel. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to stay humble, and always, always remember there is no fate but what we make.